This is You're Probably Right. Entertainment first, everything else is just bonus. Opinions, all ours. Sometimes backed by research, but never the final word. There are always exceptions, so take it with a grain of salt and a slight dusting of chili powder.
Hey, how you doing? This is MCM. Thanks for hanging out with us, y'all. Remember, this episode, as all other episodes, are for entertainment purposes only. And if anything that I say, talking about a person alive or past, or to be even, it's clearly just a coincidence if it references or feels like it references anybody. So check it out. Today, I want to talk about the vague, self protective, selectively intimate person. Now, remember, this episode is the third recorded episode of A Match Made in Hell. This is part two. But the reason why I'm saying this, well, actually, I did number one, I did three and four. So this is the fourth, even though it is the second. The first one was kind of a throwaway. I'll be honest with you. I didn't get that one right. As a matter of fact, this one I already recorded it and I didn't like how it turned out, so I deleted it. And I'm doing it again, but just a different spin on the whole topic. So again, I'm talking about the vague, self-protective, selectively intimate person. And I guess the scenario would be that either you're having a rough time in a relationship with that person now, or it's past and it's still nagging on you. Anyhow, listen. And I know that's a lot of words to describe one person. Obviously, you could use a lot more, but just like almost like a title. But I think it's the best way, honestly, because this isn't just someone who's cold. Yeah, you might as well pull up a chair, sit down for a while, or start that car and get on that road that we like to drive on. Listen, it isn't just someone that's cold, right? This isn't just someone who doesn't care. And I wouldn't even automatically frame this person as evil. Although, if you've dealt with someone like this, and you might feel that way. Because this type of person can do a lot of damage. But the damage usually doesn't come from them being obviously cruel. That's the confusing part. The confusing part is that they can be warm, really warm. They can be affectionate. They can be attentive. They can make you feel chosen. They can make you feel like there's something real happening. And in the moment, maybe there is something real happening. That's what makes this so hard, because they're not necessarily faking every feeling, right? They're not necessarily sitting there like some villain in a movie or a cartoon. How can I ruin this person's life? That's probably not what's happening. The stronger read is this: they're emotionally responsive in the moment, but structurally reliable, or unreliable, I should say, over time. That's the whole episode pretty much right there. They can do the moment, they can do closeness, they can do chemistry, they can do eye contact, they can do late night conversations, they can do cuddling, they can do private vulnerability, they can tell you the deep dark secrets of past relationships or something. They can do the little bursts of intimacy where they tell you something deep and now you think, I'm in. But what they struggle with is the structure that comes after, like clarity, consistency, definition, repair, accountability, clean endings. Those things are usually not their strong suit. And that creates a very specific kind of damage to a person. I mean, if you really go over the list, you know, clarity. I'm just look if I just look at the list for myself and I'm saying, okay, I'm in a relationship and I'm thinking, which one of these things would like hurt me the most? Clarity I could deal with, honestly. Sometimes, right? I mean, sometimes you need a little bit, but I'm just saying, just bear with me for a sec. I'm kind of veering off a little bit, but if I look at all of them, right? If I look at clarity, consistency, definition, repair, accountability, clean endings. Um, Clean endings is obviously really, really hard to do. Like if it's not a clean ending, I think it's a problem. It depends, but I mean, I think if I want to end it, then it's not so bad. So I could almost live with that part of it. But I have a hard time dealing with like no accountability for what you did, and no repair has to be number one. Because if you never want to repair anything, then you're just leaving something destroyed. We're talking people, not things, right? Anyhow, those things are usually not their strong suit. And that creates a very specific kind of damage because they're not cold enough to just say, get out of here, dismiss them. They're not honest enough to define exactly what the heck's going on. They're not stable enough to build with. And they're not brave enough to end clearly. That's a dangerous combination because with a cold person, right, at least sometimes you know where they stand. You might not like it, but you know. This person's kind of what they would say is I drink my coffee lukewarm, right? With them, you might not, you just might not know at all. You certainly, I would say, no, you hardly ever know. You're close, but not close. You're chosen, but not chosen. You're special, but somehow not special enough for clarity. You're allowed in, but only to a certain point. And if you ask too much, now suddenly you're the problem. And that's where the trap starts. Because this person often likes the benefits of closeness without the full responsibility of closeness. They like they like being wanted. They like the attention. They like the care. They like loyalty. They like access. They like knowing that somebody is thinking about them. They like being emotionally important to somebody. But when it comes to time to carry the weight of what they helped create, they start moving differently. Now they're vague. Now they don't know. Now it's complicated. And now they need space. Now they don't want to talk about it, that's for certain. Now they didn't mean it like that. Now you're taking things too seriously. Now they never promised anything. And technically, maybe they didn't. That's part of the game. Not always conscious, but many times still a game. They keep things blurry enough that they can always retreat into innocence. I never said it like that. I never promised that. I was just being nice. I thought we were just going with the flow. Why does everything have to have a name? I didn't know you felt that strongly. They got too attached. See, that's the move. They allow enough intimacy for you to feel bonded, but not enough definition for you to hold them accountable. That's why this type of person can leave people mentally trapped. Because nothing was cleanly stated, but so much was allowed. And listen, that line's important. Nothing was cleanly stated, but so much was allowed. That's where people lose their mind, because now you're sitting there trying to explain something that technically didn't have a name, but emotionally had a lot of weight. You're trying to explain a relationship that maybe wasn't called a relationship. You're trying to explain a bond that they participated in, but now they're acting like you invented the whole thing by yourself. And that is where people start sounding crazy, of course. You talk to other people about it. Because now you're over explaining. You're sending long messages. You're asking for some sort of clarity. You're replaying conversations, maybe looking at old texts. You're trying to prove that something happened. You might even have to look back on pictures and say, were we really in that picture? Was that picture really sent to me? You're trying to prove that they encouraged it, the whole situation. You're trying to prove to yourself, at least, that you didn't just make it up. You question yourself. And the whole time, they can sit back and look calm. That's the social advantage of the vague person. The more invested person usually has more visible evidence, long messages, repeated questions, emotional intensity, difficulty letting go. The vague person has less visible evidence because their part was often quieter. A look, a tone, a pattern, private closeness, small little gifts, maybe just gum, maybe even just a handful of jelly beans or a handful of nuts or something. Moments that meant something while they were actually happening. I bought lunch, bought coffee. Encouragement that wasn't always direct enough to quote it cleanly. So by the time it blows up, the more hurt person looks unstable and the vague person looks reasonable. And that's very convenient. Very convenient. Because now the story becomes they were obsessed. They wouldn't let go. Why Mary wouldn't let go? They kept asking me questions. Sheila started asking me too many questions. No, they were too intense. What's his problem anyway, right? But what gets left out, though? The warmth, the access, the mixed signals, the little emotional openings, the private closeness, the stories that maybe one other person on the planet knows with them and they brought that to you for whatever reason. The way they benefited from being wanted, the way they refused to end it clearly, the way they pulled even that, even the refusal to end it properly. Like you're like, oh, somewhere in your crazy head thinking that you have a chance still somewhere for some reason. The way they pulled away slowly enough to avoid guilt, but not honestly enough to give peace to anyone. That part that gets left out right there. And that's why I call this person self protective, because a lot of what they do protects their own image. They don't want to be the bad person, they don't want to be the user. They don't want to be, sorry, they don't want to be the person who accepted more than they were willing to return or able to. They don't want to be the one who led somebody on. They say it. They don't want to be the author of confusion. But you see, I can tell you for a lot of people, it's that they don't want to be the one who led anybody on. And sadly, I'm going to tell you straight up, I'm sure somebody said this before and we're just coming to the same conclusion. Because you could probably Google this and I'd be interested if you check it out. But I know it's not that watershed moment for everybody, so I don't know why I'm taking so long to say it. But if the person that you are with, or you are with, or you're withing with, ever says to you, I don't want to lead you on, you're being led on. Period. I don't care what anybody says. If they say that to you, then they're leading you on. And I'm sure somebody else has said this. I just honestly came to this conclusion just now. Anyhow. So instead they keep things soft. They keep things movable. They like as much access as they can get. They'll keep coming for more until they keep things vague. That way, if you get hurt, they can tell themselves, well, I didn't really do anything wrong. I didn't offer the world. I didn't say forever. And maybe they even believe that. That's the part that makes this more complicated, because I don't think every person like this is fully conscious of what they're doing, but I know that some of them are. Some know exactly what they're doing and they've done it before. But a lot of them probably only know enough to avoid certain conversations. They know enough to dodge questions. They know enough to delay. They know enough to change the subject. Yeah. They know enough not to say the thing that would make them responsible, whatever that is. But, funny, but they might not be sitting there saying, I'm exploiting ambiguity. They're probably telling themselves something softer. I don't want drama. I don't want to hurt them. I don't know what to say. I'm trying not to make this worse. I don't want to be mean. And all that sounds nicer, but behaviorally, it can create the same damage. Sometimes even worse, because at least A direct person gives you something clean to work with. This person gives you fog. This fog is hard to grieve, right? Fog is hard to confront. You're in it, but you were in it, but fog is hard to explain to your friends because people will ask, well, what did they actually say? And you're like, okay, that's the thing. It wasn't just what they said, it was everything. And now you sound like you're reaching for excuses, right? But you're not necessarily reaching. Sometimes you're trying to describe a pattern that was built through accumulation of meetings, hangouts, conversations, maybe a accumulation of day in, day out contact for a long period of time or short period of time. If you call 2, 3, 4 months, a short period of time, if you like in contact with this person, say for 4 months straight, every day by text, and then all of a sudden everything just cut off. No argument. They just kind of got bored of you or something in your mind, right? There wasn't one big promise, just a lot of little permissions, a lot of little invitations, a lot of little emotional deposits. And then when responsibility shows up, they disappear from the account. That's the pattern. They move towards what feels good. They move towards attention. They move towards chemistry. They move towards comfort. They move towards ego reinforcement. They move towards being wanted. Right. But if the next moment requires accountability, clean answers, discomfort, conflict, or dealing with somebody else's pain, they move away. So up close, they feel genuine. Over time, they feel irresponsible. And that's a nasty combination because you can't even fully say it was fake. That would almost make it easier. You almost want to say in your own mind that maybe they just have multiple personalities and that version of them really loves you somewhere in the universe. That's wild. If it was all fake, you could throw the whole thing out. But sometimes it wasn't fake. It was just incomplete. They meant it while they meant it. They felt it while they felt it. They wanted you while they wanted you and felt good doing it, whatever that was. But they didn't want the responsibility that came with being wanted back. That's the issue. They wanted the pleasure of intimacy without burden of consequence. They wanted ego value of being desired without the moral cost of choosing clearly. They wanted access without ownership, warmth without structure, connection without accountability. And maybe that sounds harsh, but look at the behavior, right? They accept emotional care. They accept attention. They accept loyalty. They might accept other things. They accept reassurance. They accept gifts sometimes. They accept your mental space. They accept the fact that you're trying to understand them. They accept the fact that you're making room for them. But when it comes time to match that with equal pursuit, equal seriousness, real repair, or clean truth, now things get blurry. All of a sudden, they don't know. Now they need time. Now you're pressuring them. Now you're making it too heavy. Now they feel trapped. And listen, people are allowed to be unsure. People are allowed to change their minds. People are allowed to not want a relationship. People are allowed to realize, you know what? I don't want this. That's not the issue. The issue is when somebody keeps taking the benefits of intimacy while avoiding the responsibility to be clear about what they're actually offering and what they're actually doing. That's where it becomes unfair because you don't owe somebody a relationship just because they like you. But you don't, well, you do owe them honesty if you're participating in something that you know is creating attachment and escalating beyond where you are actually really willing to go. That's the line. You know, those people who promise marriage to a person that they can't marry at the moment, maybe they're already married, but they keep saying they're going to marry you. So, for whatever reason, you believe it. You don't have to love somebody back in that way, right? Love everybody, but not in that way. That agape love for sure. But this type of love, if somebody feels that way about you, they might just feel that way about you. You don't have to commit. You don't have to be who they want you to be. But if you're enjoying the benefits of their emotional investments and other investments, and you know that those things are sacred and you know they're getting attached and you keep feeding it while refusing clarity, then you're not innocent just because you never made a formal promise. There's no like that plausible deniability is not there. You've partaken in something deep. That's the part people don't like to hear because some people hide behind the technical innocence, the technicalities of the whole situation, what was technically said, what was technically promised. I never said we were together. I never said I love you. I never, well, I did, but you know what I mean. I said we had I never said we had a future. Okay. But what did you allow, right? What did you encourage? What did you accept? What did you keep alive because it felt good? What did you keep maybe giving into? That matters too. This is why omission can become its own kind of dishonesty. People just don't say certain things, right? Not always a direct lie. A lot of them don't have, a lot of people don't have um, the the guts to directly lie to you. They just leave things out. The funny thing, and it's not so funny, is when a big thing gets blurted out by accident. I can't say, but they just a lie. You tell a lie, you forget you told the lie, and then you talk about the real story about the lie, and then the person's like, "Huh? What do you mean? I thought you said it was." Maybe it was something like, I yeah, you said you were out with Chris, but you said Chris was a guy. Right. You forget. It says, yeah, we went into the washroom or something like that. Or we couldn't go into the same washroom. Like, wait a sec. Why couldn't you and Chris go into the same washroom? He was a guy. And all of a sudden, anyway, you know what I mean? They just leave things out. Maybe that's not even a good, maybe they just said the person was Chris. They knew that you were assuming that it was a guy and it was really a girl, that kind of thing. So but you didn't say anything. I didn't say it was you know. It's not always saying something false, right? Sometimes the dishonesty is structural. It's in what they don't clarify. It's in what they let you assume, right? It's in the illusion they allow the situation to create. And they know what you think. And you know, when you catch them, more more often than not, when you catch them in one of those illusionary lies, I'll call it illusionary lies. Is that even a word? I guess the captions will try. Um, yeah, let me see. Yeah, when you catch them in one of those illusionary lies, they usually are angry with you. Like they're not like going to be all sheepish. They're going to be angry with you. They're going to somehow flip it in most cases and get angry with you when you catch them in one of those illusions. Hmm. I think I just figured something out there. Uh, that's for me, I guess. They may not lie with their mouth, but they're certainly dishonest. They may not lie with the shape of the relationship. They may lie just by silence, by delay, by softness, by letting you believe something they know they're not willing to confirm. You're planning about next Wednesday, and by next Wednesday, they're planning not to be around, even though everything is going forward at the same time. It's like a dance. You're both pulling this way, and then all of a sudden you're pushing that way, and they're pulling away at the same time. So you're still going in the same direction. The difference is eventually they won't be there. They'll pull away enough, and you can't see them anymore. And again, not every case is evil. Sometimes it's immaturity. Sometimes it's avoidance. Sometimes it's shame. Sometimes it's conflict, fear. Sometimes it's somebody who genuinely doesn't know themselves well enough to move cleanly. But damage doesn't disappear just because the person was confused. That's important. A person can be confused and still be harmful. A person can be conflict avoidant and still be unfair. A person can be scared of hurting you and still hurt you worse by refusing to be honest. Because what they're avoiding is usually the hard conversation. A clean answer would require them to disappoint somebody directly, own their role, tolerate another person's pain that they caused, sit in discomfort, maybe be remembered as the person who ended it. And most of the time, they don't want to be there. So instead of ending it, they drift. They pull back, as I was saying earlier. They get slower. They get colder. They get less availability and disappear. They remove their body, their energy, their attention, their little signals. They used to look at you a certain way. They used to look for you when they didn't see you. They used to try to make you laugh, try to be engaging. No hand on the arm or the shoulder or the small of your back or on the, But they don't give you the dignity of a clean ending. So now you have to end something that you didn't want to end. You don't even get to end it, really. Really, you just have to accept it. Here it is. So now you have to end. You have to move on. Maybe you had to move on. Maybe you're still trying to move on. Probably while you're listening still. You have to say the words. You have to become the person who makes the break official, even though behaviorally they've already left. That sucks. Because when you finally say it, when you finally realize they're already, they're gone in their mind, even if they're physically there. They're totally okay with you finally coming up with the words. It's like a trap, tricks you into saying it almost. Anyhow, that's a very specific kind of hurt because now they get to say, well, you ended it. No, I named what you were already doing. That's different. And that's why this type of connection can mess with people so badly because the ending isn't clean. It's not one door closing, it's a hallway full of half open doors. And every time you try to walk away, you wonder if maybe you misunderstood. Maybe they still care. Maybe they're scared. Maybe they'll come around. Maybe if you explain better, they'll understand. Oh, maybe if you're less emotional, they'll be honest. Maybe if you give them space, they can choose you. And that's how you get stuck, though. Not because you're stupid, not because you're obsessed by nature, but because the situation was built to keep interpretation alive. That's the danger of selective intimacy. It gives just enough to create hope, not enough to create security. Sorry, guys. You just enough warmth to pull you in, not enough structure to let you actually rest, though. And if you're more invested, meaning driven person, this is probably one of the worst people for you to bond with, just being honest. Because you're going to read into things, you're going to remember details, you're going to connect the dots, you're going to try to understand, you're going to try to make sense of the inconsistency. You're going to try to shoot bail all over the place. You're going to think the intimacy means more than it maybe does. And that is hard. And maybe sometimes it did mean more. That's the worst part. It's not always nothing. What they said might not be a lie. You might just be that guy, or you might just be that woman. Sometimes the moments are real, but a real moment doesn't equal like real structure in a whole life for a lot of people. A real feeling doesn't equal real commitment. A real connection doesn't equal a reliable person. That's the distinction. And I think people need to hear that. I know there's a lot of people who give these types of relational advice, and usually they're talking about avoidance straight up in what they do. But this is a little bit different, I think. Anyhow, because a lot of people are out here trying to prove the feeling was real. And maybe it was, but the better question is, right? Was the person willing to carry the responsibility of what that feeling created? Was the person willing to carry the responsibility of what that feeling created, especially in you? That's the question. Not did they feel something? People feel things all the time. The question is, what do they do when the feeling has consequences? What do they do when clarity is needed? What do they do when repair is needed? What do they do when you're hurt? What do they do when the situation needs a name? What do they do when their comfort and your dignity are in conflict? That's where you find out who you're really dealing with. Maybe well, because listen, anybody can be warm when warmth feels good. Anybody can be intimate when the intimacy is feeding them. Anybody can be soft when softness costs them nothing. The real test is what happens when honesty is expensive. Do they hmm, do they tell the truth? Do they define the situation? Do they repair what they help damage? Do they end cleanly? Or do they protect their image and let you bleed in confusion? That's the difference. So if I had to strip this whole person down into paragraph, one paragraph, I'd say this. This is someone who's emotionally responsive in the moment, but structurally unreliable over time. They're unusually conflict. They're usually conflict avoidant, am I saying? Protective of their own image, drawn to the benefits of closeness, and unwilling to carry the full responsibility for the attachment they help create. They prefer ambiguity because ambiguity lets them keep comfort, reduce guilt, keep their options loose and open, and later minimize their role if the situation becomes painful for someone else. I would say that would be the profile. And in one sentence, they want the rewards of closeness without the cost of clean truth. That's it. The reward of closeness without the cost of clean truth. Now, again, I'm not diagnosing anybody. I'm not saying every vague person is a narcissist. I'm not saying every avoidant person is evil. Evil. I'm not saying every confused person is manipulative. Manipulative. Sounds better. Yeah. Guess manipulative. Manipulative. All right. But I am saying this. When somebody keeps accepting intimacy while avoiding clarity, that's not harmless. When somebody keeps letting you bond with them while refusing responsibility of the bond, that's not neutral. And when somebody lets you look crazy, you looking crazy for reacting to confusion they help create, that's not innocence. That's self-protection at somebody else's expense. So the practical thing is this. Don't only ask them, are they warm? Don't only ask them, are they warm? Ask them, are they going to be clear? Don't only ask, do we have chemistry? Ask, can this person handle accountability? Don't only ask, do they open up to me? Big deal. Ask, do they follow through? Don't only ask, do they make me feel wanted? Ask, do they make me feel secure? Because closeness without clarity can become a trap. Warmth without structure can become confusing, and intimacy without accountability can damage people. So if you're dealing with someone like this, stop trying to prove every moment meant something. Maybe it did, but meaning isn't enough. You need structure, you need honesty, you need consistency, you need somebody who can sit with hard conversations without disappearing into a fog, because the person who only shows up when it feels good isn't really showing up at all. They're visiting. And some people mistake visitation for commitment. Don't do that. All right. That's the episode, y'all. Take it with a grain of salt. Maybe a slight dusting of chili powder, because it probably burns a little. And anyway, if you're going through something, well, you're listening to someone who understands, because I've been through some stuff too, right? And I understand that things don't always work out the way you think they're going to work out, or the way people told you that they were going to work out, or the way they implied that they would work out. But if you are a believer in the Lord Jesus Christ, the Son of God, the Most High, the only begotten Son, the one that John 1 talks about, says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Yes, Jesus was there from the beginning. Let there be light, right? All right, guys. Anyhow, I am going to call it a episode. Hopefully you like this one. Please, if you can do me a favor, can you rate me somewhere or like something somewhere? I don't know where. Wherever you're listening to me from. What I found out is that most of my listeners come throughout all kinds of different places on the internet. All kinds of places in the world. I was going to look at my phone and tell you the places, but offhand, of course, United States, Vietnam, Canada, Brazil, I think Norway, Netherlands. Who else? There's a few other places, but I really appreciate all of you who listen. I really appreciate those who take time to rate me on, I guess, Spotify or Apple. Those seem to be the big dogs. I know a lot of people don't listen to their podcasts through those providers, but even if you rate me on Google or something, I don't know. I mean, they don't have Google Podcasts anymore, do they? So, but you know what I mean. If you appreciate the stories, and you know, if you feel like I'm someone that is doing their best in this space, then maybe you could just reward me a little bit. You know what I mean? Anyway, I'm just rambling. Anyhow, until next time. Actually, the next episode, if you're still here, which there's probably nobody here, I'm going to be talking about something else. Well, not really something else, another side of this, and that's when fruit tells the truth. And that's under the same part series called A Match Made in Hell. I didn't really like the name. I still don't really like the name, but for someone who's gone through it, a person who's done all kinds of things that they wouldn't normally do for a person, or because of a person, or to impress a person, then you know what I'm talking about. I'm moving around here. There's a squirrel looking for food from me. Yeah, he sees me. It's funny. Yeah, can't ran up to the door, to the window. All right, let me go feed the squirrel. All right, take care. Hey, come check out You Probably Right podcast. Society is getting more unpredictable every day, but at the same time, predictable in its unpredictability. Say that 4 times real fast. Come with me as I attempt to find clarity in all the fog while staying way outside the box and kicking the box way down the road with my size 12 ducks. I use the Bible, experience, education, fortune, misfortune, life's lessons, life's mistakes to sort through all the mess. I talk about news, God, God, self-help, sports, sickness, health, music, parenting, love, humbleness, hurt, pain, joy, and all the things that might make you say, I never thought of it that way. Hopefully, anyway. Also, I take a stab at answering tough and not so tough questions, and all the while, understand that, listen, sometimes you end up in the hot seat and there's no thermostat. Well, that's how it is here. And because there's no topic, well, very few topics off the table, Torontonians will understand that Doug Ford reference there. Hopefully, the podcast will be helpful and uplifting. And hey, maybe you'll find your own private Idaho here somewhere. Hope to see you soon.